It's always the first one's always the hardest one.
Oh yeah.
Once we get this going. Yeah, because we just started after the intro, so we should be good. And hang on. It's going, it's going. Once we see the live, and then I will. All right. Here we are. So I will go back here and make you the host. All right. So welcome everybody. Virtual Christmas Summit, first session of the day in room 2. We've got Merlin Potter here, who's going to be presenting coming from LOR to xLights. Remind everybody we have you muted. Please ensure that your audio and video are kept off. There will be time at the end for questions. So if you do have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. And then after the presentation, we will go ahead and do the raffle. So I'm going to turn it over to Merlin. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Wizard, actually, and Wizard really is my name. You'll find me on most of the Christmas forums as Dr. Wizard, but I go as Merlin Potter on Facebook because they wouldn't let me use my real name without sending them all kinds of documentation to prove it, and I don't trust Facebook that much. If you were at the Florida Mega Mini, I was the guy with pink hair. I live in Orange Park, Florida. I'm a retired software engineer. I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. I'm a doctor of metaphysics and theology, and I'm a geek. I've been the family Christmas light guy since I was a tween. I started out with some homebrew controllers and stuff like in the 80s and 90s. I started with Lightorama back in 2006 after the viral video of Wizards in Winter. But last year I switched to xLights because I had an issue with Lightorama that they didn't seem too anxious to fix. My show is called Dr. Wizard's Giant Musical Holiday Light Show, which is a mouthful, so it's just Wiz Lights for short. And you can see on the screen there is the webpage, and I'm on Facebook and all that, and my email address. You're welcome to ask me questions. I don't have a problem with that. Presentation etiquette. I hope everybody knows this. Mute your cameras, all that. All right. So
Merlin, let me jump in here 1 second. So we have
yes.
some users in here that do not have their attendee ID, their attendee number in front of their name. So I'm going to give folks a couple of minutes if you want to bounce out, bounce back in, put your registration number in front of your name and come back in, because if not, we can't enter you into the prizes. So, so if you look in the list, so that would be Ben, Michael, Nick, NJ, Pat, Sean, and Tom. So, all right, thanks.
Okay, so Lightorama and xLights, a lot of the concepts are the same. They're not really all that different. In fact, they've been kind of copying features from each other for years. But I wanted to highlight some of the key differences. One of the biggest one is that xLight stores your channel configuration, your controller setup, all that just once, and that's in your show folder. Of course, you can have more than one if you just want to set up multiple folders. Lightorama Showtime version 4 stores your channel configuration with each and every sequence. I believe they fixed that or changed that with version 5. xLights is really based on models and props, and they kind of have a different way of looking at controllers and channels and stuff compared to the way that Lightorama does it. Your xLight sequences have to be rendered, and so basically it's compiling all the light data ahead of time, and then that just spits that out to the controllers when you play your show, which is why you're able to run it on these little Raspberry Pi and BeagleBone and things like that. xLights is cross-platform. They have versions for Windows, Linux, and Macintosh, and they have the player for the Raspberry Pi. xLights has great hardware support, all kinds of different controllers that work with it. So you can really expand out in that area. xLights has way more effects and settings to play with. In fact, you might even be a bit overwhelmed. I know I was at first, but a lot of fun. Allows you to do a lot of interesting things, and xLights is free. xLights will support your Lightorama controllers. Not a problem at all. You can run them in LOR mode if you want. Most people end up switching them over to DMX mode. And one of the reasons for that is that xLights is pretty much DMX oriented. And so if you do things that way, it's a little more efficient. To change your controllers over to set up the DMX channels, that varies on which model of controller you have. They're all a little different. You can find the instructions on the LOR website for that. And if you want to run xLights in LOR mode, though, you are limited to 96 channels. Your LOR dongles will also work. That's not a problem because the LOR dongles are really nothing but a RS485 adapter. So they work quite well as well. Now, unfortunately, you can't just directly import your channel configuration from Lightorama into xLights. There's enough differences that wasn't really practical to be able to do an import of the configuration. You're going to need to recreate it in xLights. And I'm not going to go into tremendous detail about controller setup and model setup, but I will touch on it a little bit as it relates to Lightorama. When it comes to switching your or recreating your setup, a couple ways that will make it easier for you is you can open your Lightorama Showtime and xLights side by side and look at your channels over there. Lightorama does have a thing in Showtime to view and print out all your channels. That's on the tools menu. So as I said, models and props and channels they're big subjects all unto themselves. And but there's plenty of tutorials on that. And there's even some other LOR to xLights tutorials. So I'm gonna, in just a second here, I'm gonna show you how you would set up a LOR dongle in xLights. If you have some of the older controllers, the Gen 1 and Gen 2 controllers, you're going to want to set it for LOR mode. And if everything is Gen 3, you're going to want to set it for LOR optimized. And so let me see how I switch. Let's see. I guess I need to, I'm going to share xLights here. Okay, so this is a blank copy of xLights, which you would see as you've installed it, and we have nothing here. So we're going to add a USB controller, and we need to set our COM port, and you can find that out through the LOR hardware utility if you're not sure. If you do want to switch to DMX mode on your controllers, you're going to leave this as DMX. If you have the Gen 1 controllers, to LOR mode, or if you have all Gen 3 controllers, to the LOR optimized mode. If you're doing the older controllers with LOR, you will want to set your total number of channels. But if you have, if you're doing the optimized, you actually tell it how many controllers, and then you can set up what each controller is, whether it's an AC controller, a DC controller, how many channels is on that board. You know, a lot of them are 16, some of them are 24 or 8 or whatever. So you can set all these up right here. You can give each one a name, you know, like main channels or whatever. And so I think I've got about 8 on mine, but this is how you would set up your dongles to work with xLights. You can also, most of the Pixel boards have a RS485 output. You can hook them up that way if you're doing DMX mode. You can use some of these other third-party DMX interfaces, and they all work. And like I said, xLights has got great hardware support. So let me switch back to my slideshow here. Let's see, is that one? No, that's that one. Or is it that one? That's the one I want. Okay. And this is what I was just talking about here for setting the number of devices or the mode. Again, talking about you might want to switch your controllers to work in DMX mode. You do not have to set your channels to start at number 1, and they don't all have to be consecutive or contiguous, but you will probably want it to be that way, because if you leave gaps or holes in your channel numbers, LOR will, xLights will still allocate memory for that. And so you'll use more RAM on the computer and it'll make your sequence files bigger. But if you are thinking that you might want to insert another controller in the future or something, you can leave a hole for that, and it's not really going to hurt anything other than using a little more memory. The LOR and DMX are both using a electrical protocol for serial communications known as RS485. The problem is they don't use the same pinouts. And in just a second here, I've got a slide that shows what pins each of these systems use. And if you're going to mix systems, you're going to need to make some crossover cables. Again, the data protocol also is not the same. The LOR communication protocol is their own, and only LOR controllers will understand that. But on the other hand, though, the LOR does understand DMX. If you're going to mix controller systems, again, that's another reason that you would probably want to go to DMX. And of course, they're not the same as Ethernet. So don't think that you can just plug them into your Ethernet switch. That's not going to work. So as I said, you might need to make crossover cables if you're going to plug your LOR controllers into your Pixel controller, or maybe you've got some different DMX controllers from someplace. And so here's the pinout, and this is going to be available in this presentation, which will be stuck online later. If you want, you can email me or message me. I'll send you a copy of this pinout sheet. So since you're coming from LOR, it's pretty good guess that you probably have a lot of AC light strings. That's how I started out. I still have a lot of AC light strings, much more than the Pixels actually, and that's the way I personally prefer it. So I'm gonna, again, setting up models and everything in xLights is a great big topic all into itself, but I'm gonna show you how you might set up some of the more common items You know, if you have a string of good old fashioned C9s or something across your roof line, or in a bush or something like that, you're probably going to want to use the single line or the polyline models. Um, you can set the number of nodes to how many bulbs are actually on the string. You're going to want to set them to single color and specify what color they are. Now, xLights at the moment does not support multicolor strings the way that Lightorama does. The workaround for that is you just create a string for each color and you overlap them and you set them to the same channel. So you can have multiple models in your xLights layout that are on the same channel. If you want bigger dots, you can increase the pixel size. The star, tree, circle, and most of the other model tools also will work quite well with your AC light strings. I mean, I have a bunch of the tomato cage trees with AC lights on them, and I just use the tree model for that. If you have wireframes, if you have Coro props with single color lights in them, plywood cutouts, things like that, you can use the custom model for that and lay out how the lights are on your prop. You may have some RGB floods. Again, you're going to use a single line model and tell it you just have one node. You'll probably want to increase the pixel size quite a bit, you know, make it 20, 30, 50, however many pixels you want it to be that would look good. And you'll probably also want to increase the transparency, maybe 50% or something like that, so that you can still see what's behind it, so that you get a kind of semi-realistic floodlight effect in your previews. Cosmic color ribbons are treated more or less the same as the generic pixel strings. So again, you're going to want to use single line or polyline. The cosmic color ribbons are usually 50 pixels, but if you've daisy chained some, you can increase that or maybe shorten them. And again, if you want bigger dots, you can change your pixel size. So let me switch back to xLights, and I'm going to show you real quick how you do a string of regular lights or a RGB flood. And let's go back to xLights. So I've got this in here now. So now we're going to go over to our layout, and we're going to go up here and we're going to use the single line tool, and we're going to create our string of lights, and we can go down here and we can give it a name, roof line. Go down here to appearance and string properties. We're going to set the, oops, let's scroll down here. We're going to set this to single color. And, you know, maybe I might have some blue LEDs or something. So we'll set that. And again, if I want bigger dots, I can increase that. The xLights tutorials will show you how you can move these around, align them up, and all sorts of things. But this is how you would probably do a typical line of AC lights, or you can even do a polyline, which allows you to go, you know, multiple places like this. And whoops, again, you would change them to single color. And we'll make these green. To do a floodlight, you're going to be here to do single line, and we'll put that right there. And we're going to call this RGB flood. We're going to set that to just one node. We're going to make it a lot bigger. Actually, let's make it even bigger than that. And so that you can see stuff that's behind it and get that floodlight effect in your preview. You probably set your transparency to maybe around 50% or so. That's up to you. You can tinker with that. And so we're going to save this. And I'm going to come back to our presentation here. So actually, I am not going to wait to the end for all the questions. I'm actually going to stop at the moment. And if anyone has a question about what I've done so far, please speak up.
Yeah, so we've got some questions in the chat, so we'll go ahead and roll through those. So we've got, let's see, let's roll down here. How do oh, wait a minute. I read all about issues, come from Joey, about issues with xLights running the Pixie controllers, not the PixCon. Can xLights run the Pixies now?
You know, that's a good question. I don't have any of those. I believe it does, but I can't guarantee that.
I thought they may be proprietary. I think that's something we have to research and get back, because I thought the Pixies were proprietary.
Yeah, what you might have to do, again, I believe you can put those in DMX mode. And then if that doesn't work, then you could probably just make sure you put it onto a LOR dongle and put it in the LOR enhanced mode or optimized mode.
Okay. We may have a response here, but let's see. So does xLights have similar support for keyboard shortcut commands like LOR does?
Yes, there's a lot of different keyboard shortcuts. There's actually on the xLight site, there's a screenshot JPEG file that you can get that lists them all.
Yep. And then from Pat, we have, if it's not LOR optimized network and you have multiples, do you add a new USB controller for each?
You can have multiple USB controllers. Each one will become its own universe. And so if you have a mix of Gen 3 controllers and older controllers, you will probably want to put the older controllers on one dongle and put those in LOR mode, and put the new Gen 3 controllers on a different dongle and put those in optimized mode. Or again, you can put everything in DMX mode. That's really probably the recommended way of doing it.
Okay. Joey asked, how hard is it to be a mix?
To be a what?
To be a mix. I think a mix of controllers.
DMX.
Maybe DMX, yeah.
You know, LOR's got probably 10, 12 different models of controllers. If you got the high-end professional ones, it's you can do it right on the little screen with the little buttons. Some of like the DC controllers have dip switches you can set. If you've got the lower end PC controllers, then what you do is you just set your unit numbers, and unit 1 is going to be channels 1 through 16. Unit 2 is going to be channels 17 through 32. Unit 3 is going to be 33 through 48, and so on.
All right. So then let's see. Pat said the Pixies can. This goes back to the previous question, but it has to be LOR enhanced. I have a screenshot saved somewhere with all the necessary settings.
Yeah, I kind of suspected that, either that or DMX.
Okay. And then is enhanced mode, it's from Deborah, is enhanced mode and optimized mode the same thing?
Yes.
And from Pat, can Gen 1 controllers be used on DMX?
Yes, they can. I've got several of them. I bought up some Gen 1 controllers cheap off of eBay and Facebook. They work just fine.
All right. That's the questions we have in chat. So I'm going to go back on mute and we can continue.
All right. come on, give me. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to share this again. Oh. Oh, really? Sorry about that. Again, here as I mentioned, each dongle will be its own universe. Okay, so now we're going to talk about getting your sequences across. Once you have recreated your channel and light setup in xLights and defined all your models and everything like that, we're going to go into xLights. We're going to create a new sequence. Select the sound file for it. Go ahead and save it. And then at that point, we just import your effects and your timings from the LOR files. I'm going to show you that in just a second here. There's also, when you go to do that, and you'll see in a moment, there's you're going to create a map where you map each of your old LOR channel to a new xLight channel. It kind of helps if you give them the exact same name, because there's an auto map function. However, if you want to rename and rearrange some stuff, this is your chance. You can still map them across even if the name is different. And I just wouldn't go overboard with that, because you might hit a confusion factor. But once you've done your first sequence, you're going to save this map. And then as you go to bring in all the rest of your sequences that you've done, you can just load that map, and you don't have to redo that every time. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. Where's my zoom controls? Where'd my zoom controls go? Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's go over to xLights. So I'm going to switch over here, and I'm going to go to my folder where I've already got my channel configuration, or a trimmed down version of it, because I have a lot of channels. And you can see I'm using an AlphaPix controller, and I've got my LOR controllers connected to the RS485 outputs on that. And here's my layout, all my different channels. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the sequencer, and we're going to create a new sequence. And it's a musical one. I love Wizards in Winter. That was the song that got me started in this when that viral video came out in 2005. And so we have created our new sequence. We're going to go ahead and save it, just so we can go back to the blank if we need to for some reason. Zoom in a little bit so that the what I'm doing here is a little more obvious. And then we're going to go import effects. This also, by the way, will bring in your timings. Go to my LOR folder and my sequences, and let's get good old Wizards in Winter. All right. So over here on the left is all my xLights models and channels, and over here on the right is my LOR channels. Then up here is the timings. So we're going to have it bring all those in. So you can just take your channels here and you can just drag drop over here, just like this. You do not need to set the controller. I'm not entirely sure why they, the color, I'm not entirely sure why they put that there, because it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of difference. And, you know, you may not want to bring everything across, and so you can bring across just the ones you want. And this is the auto map that I mentioned, and anything that has an identical name, it will automatically map for you. If you've got RGB channels, you will bring you're going to assign the groups to each other, not the individual channels. So you'll see, like, I've got this RGBW, but I didn't do the actual colors, just the overall prop. And I think I've got a few here that don't have the same name, like my wreath. So I can bring those across. Just like that. And once you've got everything done the way you want it, we are going to save this. All right, there. This is an XMap file. And we've got this done. We're going to hit OK. And voila, it brought in all of our timings. We'll zoom in a little bit more. We can go look and we can see that it brought in all of our effects. So, you know, at this point now you can start tweaking and editing if you want. Of course, you're probably going to want to resave it. Another thing with the saving is that when you save, it re-renders everything for you. You might have seen the little taskbar flash down here for a minute. I've got a pretty fast machine, so it renders pretty quickly. If you're running this on a slower laptop and you have a lot of channels, it may take a minute or two. So this one is now done. If I want to do some more, I can go ahead and I can make a new sequence. And we're going to do, let's see. Let's do, well, actually, I don't have the other audio files over here I wanted. So let's go there. Let's do Carol the Bells. And so now we've got a new Carol the Bell sequence. We go back up here to import. And now we can load that map we just made a minute ago. And voila, everything's mapped across again for us automatically. We don't have to keep redoing this on every sequence. Hit OK. And there we go. And we've got this one done already. That fast, that easy. Go ahead and save that. Good. And just real quick, one more. It's rendering there. Took it a second. I've also got Blue Christmas by Elvis. That's my sister's favorite. There we have our blank. We import. Now, when you go to do this, let's load our map. It's possible you might not want to bring all of them across for some reason. I can foresee that. You can take things and you can drag them back over here to get rid of them. Any timings that you don't want, you can uncheck those, and if they're not checked, it won't bring those across. And there we go. So I'm gonna pause again for a minute and take some questions on what I've done here. Host, can you switch over again?
Yeah. So let's see what we have here. Let's go back to. Okay, so before we were talking about the Gen controllers, Joey said, I think only Gen 3 can support DMX, but not 100% sure on that.
No, that is not true.
think
I know for certain that's not true. Because I have I have a couple of Gen 1 controllers that I bought when I first started with this back in 2006, and I'm still using them.
Right. Gen 3 was the enhanced network. So that's where we
Yes,
started
Gen
getting into
3 is the enhanced. Only Gen 3 will do the enhanced, and you cannot mix them if you want to use the enhanced mode.
Absolutely. Andrew asked, are you able to put a house as a background similar to Laura's so that you can easily place lights accurately?
Yes, you can. I'm not going to go into real detail about that because that's a complicated subject into itself. A cool thing though is xLights actually allows you to do a 3-dimensional preview, and there's a neat trick. You can find a video on the xLights site how you can get a 3D model of your house using the Hover app on your phone and convert that into a 3D model and bring that right in. I'm going to bring my preview window. I'm going to switch back to my layout here. And I'm going to switch this to 3D mode. And you can actually see that I've got a 3D model of my house that I made with Hover, and everything is all laid out as it actually sits in my yard. And an interesting thing with this, if you lay it all out in 3D like this, when you go to render effects, you can render the effects across multiple models, and it will actually do the different colors and animations based on where those models are located. So that's a real neat trick that LOR does not do.
Right. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Joey, I know that LOR uses a white background for the AC and black for the pixels. Can xLights be set up that way too?
I
think the answer is you can do, you
well,
can, but you wouldn't. Why would you want to, right?
In your model preview, of course, it's going to, when you're not running a sequence, everything shows up in white. Mm-hmm. But then when you're running the sequence in your preview, it's going to show the color that it would actually be. Now, as for the sequencer tab where you lay things out, yes, pixels are done in white. So if I go to one of my groups of pixels here, such as my eaves, and actually the way it does it, if I were to do a bar effect, I guess, on this, it would show what it's going to, how the colors are transitioning. Also, if you have your, I did have this set where it showed my model preview and my house preview. I don't know why.
Well, let's rock through the other questions, and we can get back to that if we have time, because it is in there. How does xLights know all this from Mark? How does xLights know all the network configurations from your settings in LOR?
Okay, so that was one of the things I was pointing out, that unfortunately, xLights cannot directly import all your channel configuration and setup. You are going to have to recreate that from scratch in xLights. And as I pointed out in that slide, a couple of easy ways that you can do that is you can run both of them side by side so that you can see what your channels are in the Lightorama. And then Lightorama also has a function that allows you to view and print a summary of all your channels. So you do have to recreate that in xLight. The actual sequencing data, the ons and offs and the ramps and the twinkles, that you can import.
Right. Okay. From Pat, in S5, when you create a prop, it saves a group essentially. When I got to change the mapping over, all I have is megatree color, but I don't have the individual channels to map over. Any idea how to get around that?
I'm afraid I can't answer that one.
Yeah, there is in the lore, I think there's an S5 class somewhere. Yeah, lore S4 to S5 that's at 2 o'clock. So they might be able to answer that one.
Yeah, I might note that I purchased the license for version 5, and it did not want to import my version 4 stuff. And I got no technical support out of Lightorama, which really kind of ticked me off because I've supported them and promoted them for many, many years. And that was kind of the final straw that got me to switch to xLights. So I'm not real familiar with version 5. I've tinkered with it, but since it doesn't want to read my sequences, I haven't done a lot with version 5.
Okay. Can you bring in subsequences?
It should do that automatically from what I've seen. That's not something that I normally do, but I believe, yes, it does. It's my understanding it does.
Okay. If sequencing for a CCR, can you use the macro effects like fills and chases?
xLights has all its own sets of effects, but they pretty much mirror the ones that are in lore, because lore and xLights have been kind of copying from each other. In fact, in version 5, or actually version 4 with the pixel editor, and version 5 where they integrated the pixel editor, I know there was some kind of deal made, and Lightorama got a snapshot of the lore source code and integrated that into Showtime. So the pixel effects are actually pretty much the same. They have pretty much the same settings. There's just xLights gives you a whole lot more choices. There's more effects and there's more settings that you can play around
and there's
with.
also an AC tab too. So there's AC
Yes, and
type
I'm
effects.
coming to that. That's probably, I think, the next thing in my presentation.
Okay. Didn't mean to steal your thunder there. So is there a way to import effects from lore S5? The sequences are stored as lore edit files.
Yes, xLights imports from version 5, same as imports from version 4. I'm still using version 4 of Lightorama, but I have not heard of any glitches or issues with bringing in version 5. Also, for that matter, you can export them back out of xLights and put them back into lore again if you want.
Okay.
So it's actually, xLights can go in both directions.
All right, and then the last one we have on here is, so I have multiple gens of lore AC controllers. It won't be a problem making them maybe DMX, but would it be easier to just leave them lore and add all the new Falcon pixel controllers on DMX?
Well, again, the suggested a way to do it is to put the controllers in DMX mode. And
Yeah,
there's really nothing to that. It's very simple. If you've got a mix of controllers, if you want to operate them off the dongles, and if you're doing DMX mode, you can mix your generations of controllers all on the same dongle in DMX mode. It's only if you want to try to use the lore or the lore enhanced or optimized mode that you would need to put different generations of controllers on different dongles.
okay. All right, let's continue. We have about, I'd say, 5 minutes, and then we'll have the
I'm
raffle.
looking at that clock. So yeah, let's get back to this here. Let's
But
go
you're certainly
back.
welcome to contact Merlin after For any other
Absolutely. My
questions.
email address and all that is at the end of the presentation here.
Yep.
Um, so I've showed you that. How I go. I have not done a Zoom presentation before, so kind of bear with me here. Now, yeah, as we were just talking about, the xLights toolbar. It's pretty much the same as LOR's. There's really no learning curve to speak of. The only thing that's a little might throw you off for just a second is that it's not on by default. You do have to turn it on, and then you also have to activate it and deactivate it so that you get the choice of the AC tools or the fancier pixel effects. And by the way, a lot of the effects that are really kind of meant for pixels, though, they do work on AC channels, especially if you apply it to like a group of AC channels. It will treat each item in the group almost like it was a pixel. So in xLights, you simply go up to the view menu and tell it to display the AC toolbar, which looks like this. And then to activate it and deactivate it to toggle between the AC tools and the other tools, you simply click this button right here. And you can see these are pretty much the same as the LOR controls. Your cosmic color ribbons, they work pretty much like your pixels. You've got all the same effects, as I said, same options. So that more or less completes my presentation. I want to thank all the vendors and sponsors, and especially want to give a shout out to the xLights team. I've been very happy with xLights. I've actually found a couple bugs and they fixed them like within hours, which I cannot say that for Lightorama. And thanks to Tom and Ed and all the people that put this summit together. So here's my contact information. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm electrical engineer. I'm not super knowledgeable on xLights yet. I can't help you with any real advanced questions on that. But as far as getting your stuff transitioned, I'll be happy to help people with that. And so for our last few minutes, do we have any more questions?
All right. Let me see if I can unmute everybody here. Let me go ahead. I'm going to reclaim host. I think that I can allow participants to unmute. So we got about 5 minutes for questions.
All right.
So if you want to ask a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. And if not, that's good too. So what I'm going to do is, let me bring this over here. All right. Hopefully this will work. I'm going to, we want to thank everybody. Let me go